Oh, sure. I was hammered.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. No, not because of the holidays, but because it's Star Wars season once again. My name is
Ho, ho,
Ryan,
ho.
and welcome to another episode of the Johnny Goodtimes Fun Factory. You just heard him a second ago. As always, I'm joined by one of the few people that can boast a better beard than Luke Skywalker. It's my good friend, Andy Woomer. What is up, my friend?
What's going on?
Yeah, so it sounds to me like, based on the ho 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 there, you are fully enwrapped in the Christmas spirit.
Bah humbug.
Yeah, you're not that type of guy, are you?
I don't care one way or the other.
You
I'm at
don't-
that age. I don't have kids. I'm at that age where, you spend more than you get. So,
Yeah.
hey.
Well, I will admit that I fell out of love with Christmas until I had my own kid, and that kind of reinvigorated me. So I spent about 2 decades as being a bah humbug type of guy. I feel like I inherited that from my dad. He's always kind of had a Scrooge quality about him. But, that's just the way some of those old guys are. I think it's a generational thing,
Probably.
Yeah. So making his debut on the show this week is a person that I've not only gotten to know over social media over the years, I've actually had the pleasure of meeting him in person. It's Ernest. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey now, thank you for having me.
Can you believe it's been 5 years since we met at the foot of the Lemieux statue outside of what was then Console Energy Center?
Wow, is that really how long it's been?
It's been 5 years this spring, man. That was supposed to be an annual
cow.
boys trip for me and my friends. We haven't been back since then.
Wow, that's and I haven't seen you since then. So.
Yeah, I miss your beautiful city. The thing about Pittsburgh is, like, if you don't live there, all you hear about it being kind of like a lunch pail town, like a steel city.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gorgeous city. Like, it had some of the coolest architecture I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think that dates back to say like the late 19th century, early 20th century money that was there. And
Yeah.
it really, it was really like an amazing place in the world. And arguably for a good long time, it fell off from that. But I think we're kind of trying to make a comeback here.
Yeah, so how much
Anthony Bourdain show be damned.
There you go. Are you still smarting from that Steelers game, which just ended about an hour ago?
Actually, my blood pressure is finally restored to normal, which is still elevated, but I've at least come back down to my normal levels, so I think I'm okay.
Yeah, that could not have ended any more worse, especially considering the opponent.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Not to get too far off on the rails here, but they've lost to them so many different ways over the years, and to finally have a game where I felt like they actually beat them and still lose. That one smarts worse than the other ones.
There you go. That's a very rosy outlook. I like that. But we are not here to talk football tonight. As I said in the open, a brand new Star Wars movie has graced the theaters once again. The Last Jedi, the second film in this brand new trilogy, centered around some of the new characters like Rey and Finn, while also mixing in classic characters like Luke and Han. Andy, I want to start this conversation off by reading a couple of tweets that you posted late Friday night. Is that all right with you?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I was hammered.
These are really good in my opinion. I totally agree with them. The first one here is, it's not a crime to say that there were issues with the new Star Wars. My column. Hashtag my column. Yeah. The second one is, I just rewatched The Force Awakens, and I'll never be convinced The Last Jedi was better because it was not. Andy, I would have said that you were crazy to post that if this was a week ago. Dude, you're spot on. The Force Awakens is a better movie than this film.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I mean, it was a lot more fun, a lot more nuance, I thought, a lot more development of the characters. I
really went into the theater Friday morning expecting Force Awakens to be kind of like a prologue to this movie. I really thought that was going to be the catalyst, like an introduction at a party, and then the hors d'oeuvres, if you will, before you have the main course. It turned out to be the exact opposite. I find myself wandering back. I kind of want to go back to that adventure more than kind of dwell upon that. Now, granted, it's been less than 24 hours, and I still haven't fully processed The Last Jedi. But yeah, I think The Force Awakens is a better film. Ernest, where do you stand on that?
I'd like to harken back to the prequels if I could for a second here.
Uh-oh.
And one thing that I learned from those prequels is that only a Sith deals in absolutes. And I feel that I'm right down the middle on this movie. There are things that I love and things that I think are the greatest choices that have ever been made in this series. And there's things that I hate, and also conversely, things that just didn't work. They might be good in theory, but they weren't very good in practice.
Well,
So
let's
I'm right in the middle on this.
let's try not to start off on the wrong foot, and let's go ahead and launch with the positives. What really stood out as being a strong point of The Last Jedi? Like, what did you see on the screen and said, "Wow, this is a hell of a good movie, and I like the direction that this is going"?
I mean, the visuals.
We can go into spoilers, right?
Oh yeah, this is we spoil everything. I should have said that audibly. I always tag it in the description. But yeah, spoilers. Don't listen if you haven't seen the movie.
Okay.
Spoil away, man.
I thought it was visually stunning.
Yeah.
I mean, the special effects were fantabulous. The red ice stuff or salt or whatever it was at the end, I really liked that. Yeah, that stood out to me as just wow.
Yeah, and
For my money,
go ahead.
for my money, I think one of the things, if you're going to start in talking about these films, is the writer and the directors that are involved in all these. And I think one of the greatest things that Disney's done is they've used some of their clout to bring in people like, J.J. Abrams, obviously, Ryan Johnson, Gareth Edwards, and a little guy named Ron Howard doing that Solo movie. Maybe his career will take off after that.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Just in terms of that, they've got some real visionaries that are working for these. And so, like I said, even though certain elements of the story might not have panned out, I absolutely love the fact that Ryan Johnson was willing to swing for the fences. He might have popped out in the infield, but he was swinging for the fences.
Yeah, and he's kind of known for not being afraid to take chances. The only other film that I've seen of his is Looper, and while I didn't care for that movie, that was he made some bold choices in that movie, and he's also directed some of the best Breaking Bad episodes in that series' entire run. So, I mean, he has he's got a solid body of work. I mean, there's not a lot of volume, but what's there is pretty high quality.
Yeah, I saw a thing on Reddit for him. It was him when he was a lot younger, and he was describing his directing style. And he basically said that he has no interest in making a middle-of-the-road movie. He wants people to love it and simultaneously people to hate it and think it's the biggest pile of crap ever. I think he's absolutely accomplished that with the Last Jedi.
Yeah, without a question, this is a very polarizing film. I know the critics.
Certainly.
The critics seem to love it. I think the Rotten Tomato score is like 97. The user, like the Joe Bag of Donuts guys like you and me that go see the movie and rate it, it's like in the 55%. So, I mean, there's definitely a divide there. And, I mean, I find myself kind of in the middle, and I definitely see why people would swing to the extremes with this movie. You've got people that love it. You've got people that are very... it left a sour taste in their mouth, if you will.
Yeah, and I can understand both camps.
Yeah.
I like to go into these sequel kind of movies with three things. What did I learn from the last one? What can I expect in the next one? And how did it advance the story? And if you go through those three bullet points with this movie, you're not going to be left with a lot in your hand.
No.
There's a few areas that I think the story advanced, though. Granted, there are definitely some...
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I think there's a few areas where they definitely moved the story forward. But granted, I will give you that there are obviously some areas where they chose to punt on it, and you'll see, I guess, JJ take that up in the third movie. But, for me, I think the Kylo ascension, I think that moves the story forward, and that's one of the areas that I think that's literally the greatest thing story-wise that's ever appeared in any Star Wars movie. I think that's the best choice they could have possibly made with that.
Now, I saw a review this afternoon that was sent to me by a friend that claimed that Kylo Ren is a more fascinating villain than Darth Vader himself. How would you feel about that comment?
Well, I have to say, in The Force Awakens, that's a movie that I was mostly positive about, but I wasn't over the mountain on it like some people. Uh, I thought he was probably, in terms of his character and his potential, one of the things I was most excited about, and that's probably why I like The Last Jedi to the level that I do, because they keep running with that. And I suppose I don't know if you could ever top Darth Vader. I just don't think that's possible. But for him, I think it's almost like he can fulfill that kind of destiny that Vader had and wanted. Like, one of the things I come back to with this movie is, his proposal, or whatever you want to call it, to Rey, where he's looking to make order in the galaxy. In Empire Strikes Back, Vader says to Luke, with our combined strength, we can bring an end to this conflict and bring order to the galaxy. Like, he kind of scoffingly dismissed Rey in this movie as like, yeah, I'm a monster, sure. And I think it's all with your, that certain point of view. He just wants to have order in the galaxy, and he believes it's almost his birthright because of who he is and, who his grandfather was. So while I don't think he can top Darth Vader in terms of a character, he can certainly fulfill a lot of where he failed.
And I thought that was sincere. I thought when he made that offer to her, I thought that was sincere. I don't think he was trying to trick her.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I agree.
I think
too.
he almost, like, if you look at this movie in particular, is like, you have to find that middle ground. I think maybe he realizes that Rey is that other side of him, and in order to, bring an end to the chaos, he would need someone like that to be by his side.
Well, and I think Supreme Leader Snoke, before he was so unceremoniously disposed of, kind of alluded to that pretty heavily, that those two, there has to be balance here. And I think those words really struck a chord with Rey, or with Kylo Ren, and he knows that he has to find. I mean, if he can work with Rey, that's the only way that this can really succeed. One cannot exist without the other at this point.
Yeah, him being able to overpower Snoke so swiftly was a little out of the blue, I thought.
Yeah,
Do you think part of that was because of that Force influence of Rey being there?
I never considered that, but possibly.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I think, because it seems like, in theory, he shouldn't have been able to defeat him as easily as he did, but perhaps, his Force powers, for lack of a better word, being tugged at from both ends. It might have been difficult to find that middle for him.
See, and if he wouldn't have said that he was the one that tethered them two together, that would have made more sense to me. But the fact that he said that I basically tricked you guys to start talking to each other and knew that you would get her here and this and that, I guess maybe if it was his grand scheme to get her, that he knew that he needed her to defeat him, then that's brilliant. But nothing led you to believe that in the story, the way they were telling it.
Well, didn't Snoke...
Do you think he was lying too, or?
Well, I don't know.
Because they have that power after he's gone.
See,
theoretically.
See, I don't read any of the canon. I don't read any of the all of this stuff. I just go by what's on the screen, and you got to make a lot of assumptions.
Yeah.
Well, that, like, to your point, that's, I think, that's one of the problems with the film.
I think Star Wars has kind of fallen into a trap here, and I've seen this with Marvel as well, where they are expecting too many people to read the source books, the visual dictionary, the Supreme Cutaways, the novels, the comic books, and all that stuff to really tie all this stuff together. Like, I've heard so many people talk about, Phasma's awesome in the comic book, she's great in the novel, but the version that we see on screen, I'm sorry, it sucked. They've done such a disservice to that character in these two movies. I don't have the time or the patience to go through all that supplemental material to flesh that character out. I just want to see that version in the film, and they're failing at that.
Well, I don't think we have to worry about it.
Do you think she's dead?
I think so, probably.
I think she's coming back. Coming back.
Yeah, I didn't see how far that fall was.
Yeah, it was a long fall. It was a long fall, but she's got that bulletproof armor. She was deflecting blaster bolts, so maybe she's fireproof. Who knows?
Yeah.
She's gonna come back a little scarred with that crack in the helmet.
She's gonna have a
Yeah.
badass scar. Don't you think it's gonna be kind of
Yeah.
like the opposite of Kylo? It's gonna be like a burn mark down the
Yeah.
eye. That could look really, really cool. How about you, Ernest? Do you think she's toast? Literally?
I do actually. I think mainly because of what you were saying. I just think that it's a poorly fleshed out character in the movies. I'm not really sure why you need to have her back.
I was kind of
Yeah.
surprised that she popped up in this movie at all. I remember during the Casino Planet scene, which we'll get into great depths later,
Ugh.
but exactly. I was thinking, like, I just, as they were escaping the prison, I'm like, where the hell is Captain Phasma in this movie? I know she was in the credit list. We saw Gwendolyn Christie is in this movie. Is she going to pop up? I would have preferred she not show up at all because it felt like they just wedged her in at the end. She's got maybe a half dozen lines. None of them are remarkable. She has a cute little fight scene, and she falls to what we assume is her death. There was no point in bringing her back for this movie.
Yeah, I agree. But I didn't have a problem with it though. They brought her in, she was there, and then I assumed she died. So that in the grand scope of the things that bothered me, that was very low on the list.
I would definitely agree with you on that. There's far bigger problems than how she was handled. Let's go ahead and talk about one of those problems and get it out of the way. The death of Supreme Leader Snoke, who we were kind of led to believe in the previous film by J.J. Abrams was going to be a big deal. Turns up in this movie, he is clearly a very powerful dark side user. I wouldn't call him a Sith, but he's definitely a bad guy. They kill him off in this movie. Totally did not see that coming. What did you guys think about that? Andy, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming, and I thought they were really going to take a turn, and he was going to end up, joining her. And I was like, oh, that's bold.
Yeah.
And then when it was the exact opposite, I was like, well, that's kind of predictable and to a certain extent, I thought. But because, he outminded him, made that thing twist through him. And I just, for somebody that's supposedly that powerful, I'd expect a little bit more. But
Ernest, how about you?
Well, it certainly was one of my greatest hopes coming into this film that they would actually have the stones to make a choice like that. So again, just back to Ryan and whatever story group there is that goes into this, I think it was a great choice. In terms of the actual execution, though, like we were talking about earlier, it's a lot of just a lot of assumption to think of like, well, why does he die this way? It's really like a weak go out for a guy that seems to be so strong. Andy Serkis did a lot of press leading into the movie about how he was, stronger than Palpatine and all this kind of stuff. And then much like Phasma, you don't see it translate to the screen. You see this guy who's a little too full of himself and, he gets sliced.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people complaining about this guy was so powerful, he could communicate. At the beginning of the movie, he takes General Hux and basically flips him around the Star Destroyer. He's not even in the room. This is a powerful Force user. A lot of people are saying, well, how did he not sense the lightsaber rattling next to him before it sliced him in half? But if you watch the movie, he's describing Kylo Ren is about to stab you and do this. He's describing all the actions that Kylo Ren is controlling with the lightsaber. And I think that's how Ren was able to mask that move and slice him in half.
Yeah.
So I have no problem. I don't consider that a plot thread. It was a very bold choice to kill off this main villain, though. I mean, I expected big things. I thought that this was going to be the specter hanging over this entire trilogy, maybe even beyond, and he's off the table now. He's sliced in two pieces.
See, and I keep seeing people saying that they wish they knew more about him. I didn't necessarily need to know any more about him, and I'm not necessarily upset that he died and Kylo's taken over. It's just the execution.
Yeah.
Like I said, I kind of like the story. I just think it was poorly told.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and
I agree with that, and especially. Oh, sorry.
I think the three of us can agree the most poorly told segment of this story, the one that everybody is bitching about on the internet. Do I even need to say what it is, guys? I think you can probably guess I'm talking about the Casino Planet. Ernest, why the hell was this whole segment in the movie?
Boy, I mean, I guess maybe Ryan wanted to get the jump on how JJ wants to tie the prequels and the original trilogy together in the third one. Maybe he wanted to have something that just stunk out loud as bad as anything in the prequels. And, he was trying it out and he said, wow, this is awful. Run with it. This is going to get me that 56 audience score.
Yeah, Ernest, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said the prequels there, because I thought one of the Force Awakens' greatest strengths is it felt like the original trilogy. And for the most part, The Last Jedi feels the same way, but that whole sequence with the overdone computer graphics, the silliness, the music, all that stuff, kind of like the slapstick comedy, that feels like it was a deleted scene from Attack of the Clones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree with that. And not only that, but I guess, in some moments I try to recenter myself in terms of like, I guess the intended audience for the movie are children. So I can see why something like that is in there, or the porgs, or just anything, or even like, like I said to you guys last week a little bit, I get that kids don't want to see my hero like win the day. That's why they want to see Rey win the day.
Yeah.
So I get that maybe it's not aimed at me, and maybe that's why I don't get it.
I'll tell you what, the girl that I was sitting next to, we had to split up. The group I went to, because we couldn't find seats together, and I sat next to this little girl, probably 10 or 11, and she was flipping out the whole movie, like shaking, and so she really liked it. So
Yeah.
like I said, when those horses or whatever they were trashing through the city, she was loving that.
Yeah, I kind of felt like that subplot was in trouble when they opened it up with Maz Kanaan. That whole scene looked like she was like it looked like they caught her in the middle of playing like laser tag, and it's just it was so random. It's like, hey, this character from the last movie that everybody was into, so we got to cram you into this film too. Do you know a computer hacker? And she's like, blah blah blah. Go to the casino planet, and I'm like, oh shit, here we go. We're jumping off the rails here. Buckle up, it's gonna be a bumpy ride.
It also takes you out of the tone of the movie for sure.
Oh yeah.
It just, this whole movie kind of has this, kind of specter of doom over it. And then you go to this planet and, there's a character putting tokens into BB-8. And it just doesn't even fit with the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Like Ryan talked about how he, has like a 3-hour cut of the movie. I wish they would take out that time and put whatever else he took out in.
Yeah. What if it's another half hour of casino stuff, though? be careful what you wish for.
Then maybe he's not the genius I think he is.
And something I think that could have maybe softened the blow on that. When they said Casino Planet, my ears perked up because I'm like, oh shit, we're gonna get the Lando Calrissian cameo. I think that would have that would have fixed that scene, but it would have been like, that whole part sucked, but we got to see Billy D one more time. But
I really thought he was going to be the code breaker.
I did too, and that would have been such a great move because they would have kept that casting quiet for years.
And I think it would have definitely, like you said, quieted up a lot of people.
Yeah.
That are flaming this now. If you just threw him in there, like, what if he would have been the Justin Theroux character or whatever, and they just showed him at the table, but he wasn't the actual one they took with them.
Yeah, it would have been perfect.
What missed opportunity, in my opinion.
One of the biggest missed opportunities in cinema history.
Because he would have had the skill set to be a code breaker, wouldn't he?
Oh, yeah.
He was a gambler. He was a swashbuckler.
Well, he had Lobot. You just watched Empire. He had that guy with the computer around his head. Bring Lobot back.
Yeah, like Lobot. Have him blowing on a dice before
Oh God.
Billy.
Yeah. Why? You should have wrote this movie. It would have been perfect.
I'm all for the Lobot cut.
Yeah, Lobot's awesome. Ernest, you brought up a good point just a couple minutes ago about the BB-8 slot machine. That is another problem that I have with the movie. I thought the comedy bits, at least a couple of them, went on 4 or 5 beats too long. I also think of the opening scene with Hux and Poe going back and forth. It was funny for the first time, kind of funny the second time, and it just kept going on and on. and on. And soon Hux was like busting chops back, and I'm like, this is how you're going to open up the movie? I thought this was supposed to be some dark shit. This was supposed to be like the ominous chapter of this trilogy, and you're riffing on each other. It just didn't work for me.
Yeah, there was a lot of slapstick.
Yeah.
Yeah, after Snoke takes a hold of Hux on the bridge, I thought Hux was going to break into the curly shuffle. His character seemed to be nothing more than comic relief at this point.
Yeah, and I thought it was the complete opposite of what it was. He was too serious in the first movie. Remember his speech outside the outdoors? He was like just screaming. He didn't even have a mic. He was just like busting through that speech.
Yeah, he's a genocidal lunatic in one movie.
And now
in the next one, he's like Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah, there's a lot of tonal issues from in this movie from the last time. I thought Finn, especially on the casino thing, kind of reverted back to the slapstick we saw of him in The Force Awakens, and I thought that character had kind of matured out of that. Also, if this movie takes place immediately after the previous movie, which apparently it does, how the hell is Finn up and walking around after taking a lightsaber slash to the back?
Well, he was in that machine for a good 6 hours. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that they must have some pretty solid healing there, because my God, it's and there was just a lot of inconsistencies there. Like the 3PO has a gold arm in this movie. I get that that's not that big of stuff, but he had the red arm like 6 hours ago. How the hell is this stuff happening? Does Rian Johnson just not like the previous film that he's trying to undo all this stuff?
That's why I think a lot of it for him is, I guess he just didn't want to play by most of the story that JJ put out there, and he just took it in his own direction. I think that's why he's going to be much more well suited for his own trilogy. I think left to his own devices, at least there won't be the inconsistencies.
Yeah. Now, Andy, are you at all worried now that we're going from J.J. Abrams to Rian Johnson? I think we can all agree that this is a completely different film. And now we're going back to J.J. Abrams. Is this going to be kind of like a roller coaster ride, this trilogy? I can't see how they're going to maintain any sense of consistency now that we're going Abrams, Johnson, Abrams.
This movie, in all honesty, kind of felt like a standalone to me. Other than Kylo taking over for Snoke, the story really didn't advance much. I mean, they evacuated one planet, went to another, and then evacuated that planet. So they're evacuated somewhere, about 20 of them, and that's basically all that happened in the movie, if you think about it.
How much time would you guys say has passed in this film? It's got to be like less than a week, doesn't it? I mean, they were on the run from the Empire, or the First Order. I mean, they couldn't have been on the run for that long, could they? So that means Rey wasn't on the island with Luke for very long.
How many days and nights do you see on that planet? What is it, 2, 3?
Yeah, she's just not there very long.
I think 3 or 4 days.
Wow.
I think between The Force Awakens and this movie, we might be talking 2 weeks.
Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah, The Force Awakens is that's a very tight timeline as well. That's like a day or two, isn't it?
I'd be remiss if I didn't suggest that time is relative here.
Yeah.
So maybe some of these planets are closer to their suns, but
that's an excellent point.
Go.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, overall, I'm not trying to be too harsh on this film. I know people are going to say I'm hating on it. I have more issues with this one than I had with the previous one. Like, it's little shit too. Like, Admiral Akbar doesn't deserve an on-screen death. I mean, he was like a major player in Return of the Jedi. He said, "It's a trap." It's one of the most iconic lines of the franchise. You're just gonna Poe's just kind of casually. He's like, "Oh yeah, we lost Akbar too, but F him. We got Leia's gonna Superman across that." Ernest, what did you think about the Leia spacewalk? How awful was that?
Oh my! Well, as a defender of most of this film, I can honestly say I can't defend the practice of this scene.
Yeah.
It just didn't work out. It's a great theory that Leia has Force abilities and that she should absolutely show them. but the way they did it, it's just comical. It's almost like cringe-inducing to have
Yeah.
watched that.
I think it could have been better served, like maybe she stopped the blast inside the bridge or something like that. But I mean, she was out there for like 3 minutes. Her fingers were icing up. Her lungs were empty of air. I don't care if she has force powers. It's cool that she does. She ain't surviving that.
Yeah.
And it just like something ripped out of like a DC comic. It didn't feel like Star Wars. It felt really cheesy and fake. There were people around me laughing about it. There were people shaking their head. It was one of the low points of the movie, along with the casino scene. Andy, what did you think of it?
Yeah, that's the point where I looked at my watch because I wanted to. When I went to see it the second time, I looked at the clock on my phone just to get to the point where I thought the movie started going off the rails. And that's where I recognized that it started. And then I went and figured out where it got back on track. And then that's how I was able to piece together that timeline I sent you with the 25 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes bad, and then 48 minutes at the end that I thought were really good.
Yeah.
So it almost, if you want to do it lazily, you could almost go by the minute Laura Dern comes on screen to the minute she leaves. Everything in there, I didn't care all that much for.
Yeah, and you can include her in that casino plot.
Yeah.
Because she's ultimately the one that forces them to do that. Because for whatever reason, she does not fill anyone else in on her plan to evacuate the fleet by the ships. Why doesn't she tell anybody that plan? Why is she keeping that to herself?
I don't
Suppose
know.
a hothead pilot.
But tell somebody else. There's all kinds of people around
no.
there.
Why would you do that?
Oh God, I don't know.
I didn't think she was very good in that movie anyway. I thought she was uninspired, flat.
Well, like Phasma, I've had several people tell me you got to read the book. She's really cool in the book. I need to see that on screen. There's got to be some way to display that on screen that I don't have to turn the pages of a book. I don't necessarily have the opportunity to do that. Show me something on screen. I love Laura Dern. She's awesome in Jurassic Park. Let her do something on screen. Here I thought she was just very bossy and not very pleasant.
Yeah, I didn't care for her performance at all.
Yeah.
The one positive I'll say for her, and it's not necessarily through the performance, but that character gives us what I think is one of the more visually beautiful shots of the movie when she makes the jump to hyperspace.
Oh, that was pretty cool, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And especially combined with the sound, the sound out.
Yeah.
I thought that was incredibly done.
I kind of wish she would have done that before they shot down like 25 of the transports, but no. It's probably would have been a little more symbolic. Probably not as dramatic, but yeah, she messed that Star Destroyer up.
Hey, but there's 20 of them high-fiving each other on that last pod that left the salt planet.
Yeah, man, there's not much left of the Resistance after this movie, is there?
No, and I was surprised that when they threw out that distress signal that no one answered. I thought at least somebody would.
Yeah, I think that's very telling. I think that it feels like the First Order got very, very powerful in this film. Like, it almost felt like they were the ragtag group in the first movie. Considering their planet-destroying weapon got blown up at the end of Force Awakens, they bounced back pretty nicely from that. They've got some resources.
What kind of mechanism does the First Order have in place that if they took over in the Force Awakens, and through this movie we're saying it's maybe 2 weeks tops? Like, how are they this, like, all-knowing, all-feared, all-in-control group? Like, I get the fact that they destroyed a lot of systems, but there's a lot of planets in the galaxy. Some of them had to be like, whatever.
Yeah, they must have some really good propaganda.
Yeah, maybe.
There's something going on there. Well, we got to talk about Luke Skywalker in this film, too. One of my boyhood heroes, although I was always a Han Solo guy first. Luke is a very different character than we saw at the end of Return of the Jedi. Ernest, what do you think about how Rian Johnson wrote this character and how Mark Hamill was able to translate that to the on-screen performance?
I think this is an area where I'm very conflicted on. I understand the need for everybody to want him to have had a better moment in a movie. I get that 1,000%. I'm one of those people. But in terms of the story that played out on the screen, which is all I can base it off of, I don't think it was this Luke Skywalker killing moment that everybody makes it out to be. You know, you have this idea of Luke. He's a hermit. He's on the island. He tells Rey, "What do you think I'm going to do? Take a laser sword and go face down the entire First Order?" So by the end of the film, she convinced, you know, between her and Yoda, they've convinced him that actually he's more than this crude matter. He's actually the symbol of hope for the entire galaxy. And it strikes with him. That's exactly what he has to do. He has to project himself to go to that planet to face down the entire First Order to buy them time to leave. You know, of course, it kills him in the process, which you can argue one way or the other about it. But I think once he's become that symbol of hope, there's nothing left for him to do as a physical person anymore. And the reason I think that is that last scene with the kids, you know, they're retelling the tales of Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
If you wanted to destroy him as a character and as a hero, that scene wouldn't be in there. The fact that there's a force-sensitive boy that looks to the sky with his resistance ring on, you know, after hearing these stories of Luke Skywalker, that tells you that this fight ain't over and Luke Skywalker ain't dead.
How about you, Andy? How do you think that? What do you think about how they wrote Luke out of the film?
Yeah,
the franchise?
I didn't really have a problem with the way that he was handled. I mean, you got to think of his inner turmoil. He feels like he failed his nephew, and you know, I don't know what else they were supposed to do. I mean, I think it would have been hokey if he came back and did something, you know, fabulous. I mean, I think what he did, projecting himself out there and then saying that you got those three statements are wrong, you know, and giving the peps talk about how everything's starting back up again. I thought that was a fitting way to end his time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's. I've complained about this movie a lot, but I do think one of the things Rian Johnson did perfectly was how he handled Luke Skywalker. I like that we didn't get the cliched. Rey shows up on this place, they train, he's the old Jedi Master like Yoda, she's the peppy young student. That's what I was afraid it was going to be, and it was something completely different. And it kind of goes back to the chances that Ernest was talking about earlier that Johnson is not afraid to take. I love how he handled all that stuff. I love the Yoda stuff. I like the different perspectives that Kylo and Luke had on the incident at the Jedi training temple. I loved everything about Luke Skywalker in this movie. I thought he was perfectly handled.
I didn't like when he brushed his shoulder off.
That was lame.
Could have done without that.
That was lame. But, yeah, like you, Andy, I was afraid that he was going to come out there. I thought he was going to, like, start chopping walkers' heads off and all that stuff. And that would have sucked. And this was perfect. This was the perfect sign-off for this character. This very tired character. He's going to get some rest. But I totally think we're going to see him in the next movie as some kind of Force ghost.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He'll be the new Force ghost.
Yeah.
I also liked the line he gave to Kylo, which seems to be the nod to Han Solo. You know, see you around, kid.
Yeah.
I thought that was well placed.
Yeah. And that basically confirms that we're going to see him in Episode 9 as a ghost to me. So it's good. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff on the Jedi Island there was well done. I think the back and forth between Rey and Kylo, I think they did 4 of them all total. I think that might have been too much.
I didn't particularly like that little.
That's what I mean. If you're gonna do it once or twice to give us the point that, hey, you know, these two are somehow connected. We get it, but they kept going back to it, and she's like, I don't want to do this right now, and she's like, you know, like in the middle of something else, and then all of a sudden,
it was like 2 awkward middle
again.
schoolers on the phone.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I could have dealt with maybe half of those instead of 4, maybe do 2.
Yeah.
To get the point across.
I guess that that's supposed to make some connection between those two characters. So, you know, for my money, it's kind of why I think Kylo is lying to her about her parents.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I definitely think he is, and I guess that's
so
because at the end, Luke and Leia seem to have an actual physical bond. in that mine.
Yeah, I
And I
mean,
think that's,
it's going to be interesting to see how they handle the parents thing because now the ball bounces back into JJ's court. He was the one that set up that mystery. I disagree with people that say it never meant anything because clearly The Force Awakens makes a significant deal out of her parents and what her potential lineage could be. To toss it all aside, and I am with you guys that I think that Kylo is completely lying to her. How would he know if her parents were just some random people? How would he have access to that knowledge? Although you could make a case that the vision in the cave kind of supports that as truth, but who knows? I mean,
but that if that's say like a dark side cave or whatever it is,
yeah,
it's her seeing her fear, like how Luke sees himself in Darth
On
Vader.
Dagobah.
I don't
Yeah.
think
That's a
yeah,
great
I don't
point.
think it's her. I don't think it's her seeing what's reality. That's her greatest fear, and Kylo sees that in her mind, so he just assumes it to be true.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are making a big deal out of the fact that her reaction when he says, look inside, it's true, it's true. And, I mean, she does appear to kind of reconcile with that knowledge. But, it could be a deception. And you bring up a great point there, Ernest, with the cave on Dagobah. That could totally be a deception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope it is. I hope that mystery stays alive. I thought that was one of the most fun. Along with who is Snoke, that one doesn't matter anymore. But the parent thing, we can kind of keep theorizing about that. And that's another thing too about this movie. I feel like there's less mysteries to kind of ponder at the water cooler after this one. Whereas the previous film was like, what is this? What's going to happen with this? Is she going to get trained by Luke? All this type of stuff. Now we're just kind of left with, well, they're on the run. What are they going to do? And I don't know what... It's going to be interesting to see what JJ does with that.
Yeah, now was he involved? When did he was he always going to do 9?
No, it was
No.
somebody else was going to do it. The name escapes me, but he got fired.
Colin Trevorrow
Yeah.
from
Jurassic
Jurassic World.
Yeah.
Is it possible he saw Ryan's cut and said, "You know what? I gotta tidy this back up."
Well, the one guy got fired.
Who,
That's why the
JJ?
job got open.
Yeah.
Well, JJ's an executive producer on this film. I don't know. I'd like to think that he had some level of input in this film.
Yeah.
Like they say they changed the end of 7 around at Ryan's request. I'd like to think JJ could have made any such request to Ryan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it's been thrown out a lot, like, oh, how could he do this to JJ? What's JJ going to do? I'm pretty sure Abrams had an idea. It's not like he just went to the theater this weekend and been like, oh, shit, this is what you did with my story, you asshole. What am I going to do to fix this now? I'm out on episode 9. Abrams knew what was going on. I'm sure he has some kind of a plan. I don't think the stuff that's wrong with this movie is unfixable. I mean, I think they just got to course correct a little bit on a couple of things, and I don't think it's anything major. It's all fixable. This franchise is not dead because of this movie. It's not that bad of a movie.
Yeah, I mean the Doomsday people are the worst.
Yeah.
They've crippled the franchise. They've ruined the. Listen, Disney paid what $80 quadrillion for this. They're going to turn one of these out a year for the rest of my life, at least, if not even longer than that.
If they have to crowbar the X-Men into these, they will to make their money back.
Yeah.
God, please don't do that. They have access to it now. So I agree. I mean, I hope they keep it to 1 a year, though. I don't want to see Star Wars become like Marvel. I still enjoy the Marvel films, but there's a couple of times now when there gets to be 2 and 3 of them a year. By the time the final film comes out, I'm getting a little bit sick of guys in spandex outfits. I don't want that to happen to Star Wars. Next year we get Han Solo. That's it for that year. I don't want to see anything else that year. I can wait till 2019.
I feel like they could get a lot of mileage out of the anthologies, though. Like the Solo, the Obi-Wan Kenobi,
Yeah.
Boba Fett, whatever you want to look at. Like, there's a lot of stories there that I think if people want to have their, like their childhoods reinforced, those movies can probably really, really do that.
Well, of the 3 Disney films that have come out so far, the anthology film Rogue One is still my favorite. I think that's the best one of the Disney era.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I like that movie more every single time I watch it.
Yeah, it's a really good film.
I just watched it yesterday for the second time.
I watched it yesterday.
Because I wasn't very into it when I left the theater. And I liked it a lot better yesterday.
Yeah, it tells a really good cohesive story, and it's got practical effects, and that's always a good way to sell me on stuff. I like seeing the models and the physical like sets that are built by like carpenters and stuff. I think that's cool, and I think it makes it look more realistic.
Yeah, they actually built an entire planet Mustafar for that movie. It's a little known fact.
Wow, that's very impressive, isn't it? You're a big Mustafar guy, aren't you? You said that the other night.
Oh, I am. I love it.
It's a great
I
scene.
would watch an entire movie of Darth Vader just walking around that castle.
Just exploring.
Like if it was like Disney Cribs and Darth Vader just shows off at his castle, I'd be there for it.
I'd watch every episode. I'd DVR every episode of Star Wars Cribs if that was a thing. Tonight we're checking out Sebulba's place. Let's go check it out. How does Sebulba live? Okay, he kind of lives like a shithead, but that's all right. All right. Do you guys have anything? Oh, we got to talk about the ending. We got to talk about Finn. He's gonna do Independence Day on the big bomb that's gonna blow open the door. Rose, who might be the most forgettable character in this new trilogy, knocks him off course, and they share the most awkward kiss since Leia kissed Luke in that bunker on Hoth. What did you guys think about that? Do you think it would have been a better ending for Finn if he had gotten to go out the hero, or do you like the point that she was trying to make?
Oh, boy, that's a tough question. I really thought they were going to send him out the martyr and have him go through with it.
Yeah.
I did too. I was starting to really think that.
I was like, wow. And then that was when I was going to say, man, that's another ballsy call. And then when they didn't, I understand why. And what she said about how they got to save what they love to make this all work. It all deals with the fact that there's so little of them left that they need to all pull together. It made sense to me. I mean, I didn't have a problem with that scene one way or the other.
What is wrong with that woman that she falls in love with him over like a 72-hour period?
Didn't take very long, did it?
No.
Hey,
it's
that's how,
Space Bachelor.
That's how all this stuff. This is how all this stuff works in these movies. Like Han and Luke barely knew each other, and they were going to planets saving each other. It's just the way these people form quick bonds in these movies.
Yeah.
Like Finn's on his way to jump into an escape pod to go save Rey. How long did he know her?
Not very long.
True.
A couple of days. Well, and it sets up an interesting love triangle for Episode 3. I don't know if they're Episode 3, Episode 9, of course. It sets up a love triangle there. We'll see if JJ fosters that and lets it grow, because now you've got Rose is in love with Finn. I didn't get the impression he reciprocated those feelings because he's in love with Rey. Who knows what direction that's going to go, and I don't know if Rose is an interesting enough character where I really care.
And Rey and Kylo have some weird thing going on. Maybe
there's some interesting stuff going on. The original trilogy, the romance was pretty cut and dry, but this one's all over the place.
We can only hope that somebody with force powers cuts their fruit up and sends it over to the other one.
God, that was such a dramatic... Talk about top 10 dramatic moments in romance history when he cuts that and sends that pear across the table to her. I don't like sand. It's coarse. You want to go out and grab a movie sometime? We're on the...
I killed them all, the women and children. Oh, you're still in the room?
Oh,
okay.
but I was in love with a senator and blah, 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 and he was an artist. Oh, God, Jesus, what a bad fucking movie. Ugh.
Like, why does she not leave the room when he's like, I killed them, the women and the children? Wouldn't you just walk outside and get some air?
Yeah, you think you'd at least go and tell the adopted brother or whatever Owen was to him and been like, this dude's got some issues. You might want to talk to the old man. Is there no shrink on Tatooine?
Hey, guy in the wheelchair, do you got a shovel I can hit this dude in the face?
I think he might be evil. He's talking about murdering children. Oh boy, but that's another podcast for another time. All right, so do you guys... I'll start with you, Ernest. Where does this movie rank in terms of the Star Wars franchise for you?
I would give it... I want to say it's probably my fourth favorite if you include Rogue One.
Okay, which we do.
And that would, of course, be Empire, Jedi, Rogue One, and then this.
Okay, how about you, Andy?
I think I'm going to say 6.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too.
I'm going to say it's my least favorite of the new ones, and I saw every single one of the originals in the theater when I was a young kid, and nothing's ever going to top any one of those three. Those
Yeah.
three are always going to be 1, 2, and 3 for me. Always, no exceptions. And
See,
then
that comes back to my point of why they had to do what they did in this movie. They're not aiming it at jaded old men like us.
Yeah.
They want,
Yeah.
You make
they
a
need
good
the
point.
12-year-old girl to be invested, not us.
Yeah, you're right, Ernest. I agree with you there. But like
I
Andy,
agree.
I feel the same way. I think the original trilogy is just untoppable for me. Even the shitty special editions with the god-awful CG they added to those. And then I have Rogue One at 4, Force Awakens at 5. When I left the theater on Friday morning, I had this above Force Awakens, but then I came home, I processed some of it, and I knocked it down a notch. And, I mean, I don't see it slipping any further than this because of the prequels is all that's below it. But this, I'm with you, Andy. This is my least favorite of the Disney era films. But
Yeah,
we'll see.
Do you think that
And
does
hopefully it'll
harm the
stay that way.
franchise, though?
Does this movie harm the franchise?
Yeah,
Oh,
like
no,
if,
no,
if
no.
if we have 2 of 3 people here with, kind of ranking them towards the bottom, they say it's like the bottom of this era of films. Do you think that? I mean, realistically, that could harm the, at least like with some people walking away from the franchise.
Yeah, I can only speak for myself personally, Ernest, and it does not stain the franchise whatsoever. If we can survive the prequel eras, if we can get through the Phantom Menace and that doesn't ruin Star Wars for you, this shouldn't ruin Star Wars for you either. I mean, there's way worse content that exists on Blu-ray out there. This is not the end of the world. And like I said earlier,
No.
there's nothing in this film that can't be fixed. That can't. It doesn't even have to be fixed. That's the wrong word. It just needs to be course corrected. Just kind of nudged back on course, if you will.
Yeah, and I agree. I'll be at the premiere of the next one.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Han Solo, it's only a couple months away. That's in March. Or May, one of the two.
But
Oh.
I did see it fell short box office of The Force Awakens.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, 20 million, I think,
Hard to-
short.
Hard to top that. Didn't Avengers 2 not do as well? I mean,
Yeah. Well,
it's
and
tough.
I
I
think
don't
one of the
consider that a
reasons,
failure.
and this might be why we're remembering The Force Awakens better, Andy, is because that was like a rebirth, if you will. That was like, Star Wars is dead, the prequels killed it, we're never getting another movie again. Force Awakens kind of breathed new life. We see J.J. Abrams is involved. We see the trailer with the Millennium Falcon. We see all these new characters. We see classic stormtroopers and Star Destroyers and something that looks like the Death Star. And we were all fired up. And yeah, I don't think, I agree with Ernest, that'll never be topped.
Yeah.
But we'll see. How are you guys feeling about the Han Solo film?
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it. We were talking about Lando. Of course, he should have a role in it with Donald Glover. I think he's a pretty good actor. I like that show
Yeah.
that he's in when FX called Atlanta. It's like, very funny, but not in a in-your-face kind of way. It's just real, like, kind of almost like, below the radar funny. Everything's kind of like a mumble joke where it's just like, oh, that happened. Oh, hmm. But I think he's really good, and I'm excited to see what he does as Lando. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited for it. That's my favorite character in the Star Wars galaxy, right ahead of Boba Fett. But, yeah, I'm pumped for that movie, and we get that really, really fast. We should almost be getting a trailer that I'm guessing neither Andy or I are going to watch. Are you a trailer guy, Ernest?
I am actually. I'm very into trailers, and that's one thing I think for myself moving into episode 9. I'm going to try to be a little less, like living and dying by every single, hey, here's a photo of this guy, and here's, this potential plot leak or this, theory. It's like I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit heading into 9.
It's something everybody should do at least once, to go into a contemporary movie like completely dark. Like we used to do like back in the 90s and stuff. Like I remember the trailer for Terminator 2 was just like, it was like a robot factory. Arnold Schwarzenegger was being built, and then it's just like ka-chung, Terminator 2, summer 2000 or 1992 or whatever it was. And I'm like, fuck yeah, there we go. That's all I need to see. Now it's like half the goddamn plot gets spilled. And there's something about like going back to your roots and just doing like the classic, like you said, Ernest, like the production photos, social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. They're just constantly bombarding us with this, here's what, blah, 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 looks like in Avengers Age of Ultron. And it gets to be too much. And it was nice to go into this film pretty much blind. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to be in the crawl. I didn't know the status of anybody, and it was fun.
I did it reversed, where I did it that way for Force Awakens, and I was a lot more spoiler heavy into this movie. But I think having done so, I think I'd mentally prepared me to not expect what I wanted in my mind this movie to be, and it allowed me to like it more.
Yeah.
So it's a rare case where that happened. I don't really recommend that, but for me, I thought, I just need to, kind of get an idea of where my expectations need to be for this story, especially in regards to Luke.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited, man. I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with this. Andy, do you have anything else you would like to say about The Last Jedi?
Yes, go see it. It's worth a view. It didn't ruin shit. It will be fine. Everyone, get off the cliff.
Is the casino scene any better the second time around?
It is worse.
Oh, shit. Ernest, how about you? You got any final thoughts on this movie?
I would like to formally ask Disney to please not waste any more great actors like Benicio del Toro in future movies.
Oh, yeah, we didn't even talk about DJ. That was not good.
Yeah,
I actually didn't mind his performance.
It's not his performance. It's just a role where I don't think they needed him to be in it. He's a very accomplished actor, in my opinion.
Yeah. You could say the same about Gwendolyn Christie as Captain Phasma. I mean, you could just grab any tall woman and stuff her in that costume, because Gwendolyn Christie's a great actor. If you watch Game of Thrones, she's amazing, and you're doing nothing with it. The lines that you're giving her suck. There's no soul to that character. And at this point, she died a horrible death, and I just didn't really care. It's just like, well, she got stuffed in a trash compactor in the last movie, and she somehow got out of a planet that was getting blown up in like 5 minutes. She survived that. But I don't care if she comes back. That character has just been so fucked up at this point. I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. All right, that's all we got. You guys got any final thoughts?
Negative.
All right, cool. Well, go see it, like Andy said, if you haven't checked it out yet. It's definitely worth a watch, whether you're a Star Wars fan or not. Don't let people tell you got to read the novels, because you don't. So that's that. We will be back probably soon. Andy, we got to do like a yearly movie wrap-up. We never even talked about Ragnarok.
Yeah, we didn't.
We should talk to Stevie and see if she'd come on with a yearly movie roundup maybe in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
We got to talk Ragnarok, which might be my favorite movie of the year.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so. All right, we are signing off. Thanks a lot for listening, and we will talk